$10,000 for pulling teeth. That was the job description. I don't think the words even registered before I clicked accept. I saw the pay and booked the gig as fast as my thumb could move. Within minutes, I was in my mom's pickup, heading out toward the address listed in the app. The infamous side gigs app, the latest craze in the gig economy we've come to know and love. The jobs aren't always as weird and cryptic as this one, but the tame ones don't pay as well either. When I first signed up, I started with the conventional stuff: food delivery, taxi service, amateur landscaping. Not a lot of effort if you're willing to accept minimal pay, but if you really want to make a living, you gotta scroll all the way to the bottom. That's where the good stuff lives. The odd jobs. Jobs that pay well because nobody is willing to do them. Now it's not what you think. The app does its best to filter out sexual stuff. The jobs are just odd. The first one I took had a heading that read, "Big pile of rocks need moving. No other details. $500. $500 to move rocks?" I could hardly believe it. The address alone was enough to scare off the casual browser. I showed up to a dusty trailer park with a wheelbarrow and some gloves in the back of my car. I thought I'd be met with some pet project, a new driveway perhaps. Nope. A fidgety man with 2 teeth greeted me in dusty blue overalls. He packed his lip and pointed to the pile of boulders in the front lawn. Said I just needed to move them to the back. When I asked where, he simply replied, "Wherever," before hobbling back inside. I didn't understand, but I obliged. The job took about an hour. I offered to do more, but the man refused. He tossed me a stack of bills and waved me off. I sat in the truck in silence. The money felt heavy in my hand as I tried to make sense of what I'd just done. Just when I thought it couldn't get any stranger, the man came back out of his house. He must have thought I already left. Probably best he didn't see me lingering. I pulled out slow as he walked in a hurry to the back of his trailer. He approached the new pile of rubble and began carrying one of the boulders back to the same spot I moved it from. I couldn't believe it. What was the point? Why pay so much to move the pile? Did he just like watching dudes carry rocks to his backyard? I spent the whole drive home turning it over in my head and came up with nothing. Some jobs don't make sense. I learned to live with that. I didn't fret over this interaction for long. I took another job shortly after that made me forget all about it. A woman paid me to come name her kittens. She claimed she made a deal with the entity a long time ago that would lay waste to all that she claimed, in exchange for some heroin. Having another person name her belongings was a way to circumvent that, or so she said. I sat on her shag carpet for about an hour with a litter of 6 kittens, trying out names until she felt safe. I left with $600 and the smell of kitty litter all over my clothes. The same day I was picking up a bouquet of flowers for someone's mom. You really never know what you're gonna get. Sure, the gigs can get a little creepy, but honestly, it doesn't bother me. I'm making a good living and my days are interesting. That's good enough for me. Unfortunately, my family doesn't see it the same way. When they found out I flunked out of college and didn't have a real job, they had a lot to say about it. Shameless, disgraceful. My mom called me a loser during one of her wine-induced tirades. I'll admit, I'm not the son you brag to your friends about. I don't have a snazzy degree or a trophy family like my siblings, but I'm happy with who I am, and that's more than most people can say. But it's not like I'm doing anything dangerous, or so I thought. I was scrolling side gigs on my couch when I came across a job. $10,000 to pull a tooth. I drove to the address as quick as I could. Didn't want to risk someone else trying to double book the gig. The house was nestled out in the woods on the nice part of town. A wall of sycamores opened up to reveal a white 2-story, atop a grassy hill. The house was fancy looking, but the vibes were off. No cars in the driveway, not a single light on the outside. Yeah, everything was clean and well kept. The yard, the exterior, the driveway. I tried to knock 3 times, but the door cracked open on the second tap. "Are you here for the job?" The man was short, pasty, and wearing a robe. He had a small ring of hair around his head, and the bushiest eyebrows I think I've ever seen. His eyes were almost as large as his smile. Yeah, that smile was wicked. Thick, brick-like teeth jutted in every direction. It was hard to look anywhere else. "Oh yeah, I'm Dave." I reached out my hand to shake his. He ignored the gesture and pulled back the door to let me inside. I stepped into the dimly lit entrance. "So the job said you needed a tooth pulled?" I asked anxiously. He started down the hall in front of me and waved me to follow. The entrance was bare like the outside. The walls were a cold gray. The light from silver fixtures illuminated the dark tile beneath us. There were no pictures, decor, or furniture of any kind. The aesthetic was surgical, clean and cold. "Let's talk when we get to the room," he said calmly. His voice was very chirpy like a cricket. I was starting to feel the pressure now. Every step further down the creepy hallway was a step further from safety. Everything about this felt wrong. We continued for a few long minutes before turning the corner into a room. Plastic wrap crunched under my feet as I entered. The room was gray like the rest of the house, bare except for an old chair sitting at the center and a cracked porcelain bathtub in the corner. Beside the chair sat a tall metal desk. An array of surgical tools glinted under the fluorescent lighting. Oh shit. I started backing out before he interrupted me. I know. My apologies. This place must appear sinister." He plopped himself in the chair and started adjusting against the seat back. "I'll cut to the chase. I need dental work." A chuckle escaped me. I'm no dentist, sir." He chuckled in response. "Yes, of course not. You see, I'm in a bit of a bind. I'm an immigrant. I came here long ago, from a place I'm sure you've never heard of." His voice was chittery like an insect. I couldn't pin down the accent. He pressed a small lever beneath the chair and leaned back. The fluorescent light dilated his pupils until his eyes were nearly completely black. "I've been tardy on my citizenship and gotten myself on your government's radar. I'd prefer to save myself a doctor's visit if I can. At least until my citizenship issue is dealt with. No need to raise any eyebrows." Nothing about his rationale made sense. Even if all of this were true, why would anyone pay a random guy to do dental work? "So you're willing to pay me $10,000 just to pull a tooth?" I tried to quietly step back, but the crunch of plastic wrap gave away my unease. He laughed this time, a long, hearty laugh. No, dear boy. I'm going to pay you $20,000 to pull my tooth." My heart nearly skipped a beat. $20,000. Don't need to tell me twice. I quickly walked up to the metal tray beside him. "Which tooth?" He grinned. "Top left, all the way back. It's infected, and I'd prefer to just take the whole thing out. I have lots more after all." He laughed again and then opened his mouth wide. It was unnatural, like a serpent welcoming its next meal. I didn't waste any time. Within seconds, I was clamping the pliers down on his large brick tooth. The tooth wasn't loose or discolored at all. It felt firm under the pliers. That's when I got a good look at the rest of his mouth. How many teeth does a normal adult have? 30-something? I counted 30 on the top alone. They were crowded. Some branched out of the gums like gnarled porcelain, while others simply butted between larger teeth. But they weren't dirty. Pearly white. I was stuck in a trance until I heard him say, "Go ahead." The words were muffled from my hand in his mouth, but he sounded sure of himself. I clamped down and pulled. Nothing. I thought I must have heard him, but he simply offered a thumbs up and returned to staring at the ceiling with his mouth agape. I yanked again. No luck. Again. Again. A little more give that time. One more. Plop. I almost fell backwards but caught my balance at the last moment. The large tooth was finally out. Bits of gum tissue and nerve endings hung loosely at the base. I dropped it on the metal table beside the chair and decided it was time to talk business. "So about the money, 40,000, he muttered. His body remained fixed to the chair, and blood dribbled down his chin from my handiwork. 40,000, for one tooth. He chuckled. Blood sprang across my shirt, catching me in the face. I started frantically wiping it off. No, 40,000 for you to keep going. I smeared what remained of the blood off my forehead and took another step back. How many teeth? He spat a clot of blood onto the plastic wrapping below. It sunk back into the operating chair. Until I say stop. He shot me a bloody grin and then opened his mouth once more. A rational man would have ran. For some reason I couldn't bring myself to. Maybe the other jobs desensitized me. Maybe the money was too good to pass up. Whatever the reason, I decided to let it play out. I got to work on the other side of the mouth. The next tooth was smaller and round, not bricky like the first one. It popped out with a loud click. The blood really started to flow now. He didn't even wince, same as the first time. I pulled the tooth beside it, working my way around the morbid ring of enamel. 2, 3, 4. 4 teeth. The blood was getting unmanageable. He kept having to take spit breaks just so I could see what I was doing. The swelling in his head was gnarly. Then came the pain. Small whimpers and groans escaped the strange man. His hands were tight and pale as he gripped the armrests at his sides. The sight was unbearable. The bloody pliers were heavy in my shaky hands. Bile was building up in the back of my throat. I took a shallow breath and started backing away, but he gripped me by the forearm before I could get far. Sick, sick. His mouth was so swollen he could barely speak at this point. 60,000. Don't stop. 60,000. There's no way he's telling the truth. 60,000 for this. And yet, I chose to believe. I swallowed hard and got back to work. The next hour is hard to remember. I just kept going. I was on autopilot, mechanical, motionless. His whole head was twice its original size now. He was choking and moaning in pain as I tore through whatever remained. I must have gone through 40 teeth at this point. About halfway through, I stopped collecting them on the metal tray, and I let them fall to the waxy, plastic-covered floor. I tried to remain focused, but questions kept bubbling up in my mind. What kind of being chooses this? Who would pay thousands of dollars to have his own teeth torn out? I reached for the next tooth with my pliers, but nothing remained. I removed them all, every single one. I turned away from the mess in front of me and vomited onto the floor. I was trying to compose myself when the man began to stir. He stumbled out of the chair and began making his way toward the porcelain tub in the corner of the room. His whole body from the nose down was covered in crimson. The pain crippled him, pressing his broken body to the floor. He got on his knees and felt his way to the rim of the tub. His eyes were swollen shut, so he could no longer see. I watched in horror as he dropped the bloody-stained robe and practically fell into the tub. Ice water splashed onto the wrapped floor, sending a wave of teeth and gore lapping at my feet. The broken enamel chattered at my blood-stained boots, as if they were still anchored to a mouth. He sat up and rested his large head against the back of the tub. It was surreal watching this bobblehead thing try to collect itself. Its eyes were swollen shut, gum spitting out from the middle of his stretched lips like loose intestines. Then I heard a sound, a wheezy laugh. His body jerked and spasmed as chuckles escaped the small gaps in his face. Just then, I heard loud taps upstairs. Tiny footsteps were approaching from somewhere above. None of this was making any sense. I had to get out. I sprinted back the way I came. The fluorescent lights above pulsed overhead. As I made my way toward the exit, I could still hear the laugh, the sound of many things heading toward the bloody mess I helped create. I was a few strides from the front door when something snagged my foot and sent me tumbling into the doorframe. I shook the fall off and frantically ripped the culprit off my foot. It was a bag, a black bag, that blended into the black tile floor so well I could barely see it. Stacks of bills were spilling out the top. I grabbed the 2 black duffel bags and made my way out the door. Before I knew it, I was peeling down the long cement road under the cover of sycamores. I'm not sure what to think about what happened that night. I haven't even bothered myself to check the bags of cash. They're still in the back of my car, a bloody reminder of hell I put myself through for money. When I close my eyes, I still see him. I can't get the image out of my head. Toothless laughing thing convulsing in the bathtub. As I sit here in bed, a sound startles me. It's Side Gigs. I received a new message. It's the man from yesterday. Just a single line of text. A ominous 4 words. Same time next week.